Can one team climb out of the basement? That is known as the Pacific Division. We dig into it next.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network's 2025 NHL season preview. Your team every day.
Hello. Welcome to a Locked On NHL's Pacific Basement Division preview, where we're going to be looking at the Sharks, the Canucks, the Ducks, and the Kraken. My name is JD Hung, host of Locked On Sharks. I'm joined by Trevor from Locked On Canucks, Kyle from Locked On Ducks, and Erica from Locked On Kraken, where we are going to dive into the Pacific Division and see if we can hoist one team up into the top four and maybe make the playoffs this year, right? One of us will make the playoffs. So we're going to be starting out, of course, because it is the off season here. And off season is also optimism season. So we're going to be going around the horn here, talking about one reason why each team is going to be optimistic. And we will start with you, Trevor. Your Canucks last year, things didn't go well. JT Miller, did JT Miller things in the locker room. But new season, Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson. Is there reason for optimism up in Vancouver?
Well, first off, I'm happy to see all your beautiful faces, but I'm thinking about last year when I did the roundtable for the top four teams in the Pacific Division, thinking that maybe, just maybe, the Canucks, the Stanley Cup contention window might be opening, man, oh man, pushing the Oilers to Game 7. And as you all know, it's here we are, the Canucks.
You're in the mud with us down here.
In the bottom, yeah.
JT Miller's the captain of the Rangers.
And JT Miller getting traded. That was something that obviously I didn't see coming last year. So look, when I look at the Canucks going into this season, almost everything went wrong last year, right? They had lots of injuries to key players. Obviously, according to what we heard, maybe the most toxic dressing room in the entire NHL. And they still almost made the playoffs, right? Like, they were kind of fighting for their playoff lives until the tail end. So when I look at this season, and man, oh man, maybe I got those blue and green glasses on, but I have a hard time seeing Thatcher Demko play only 18 games. I have a hard time seeing Elias Pettersson have only 45 points. And those are, two of the most important guys on this team outside of Quinn Hughes, who I believe will be a superstar once again. Philip Hronek, a key defenseman, missed a chunk of time last year. I mean, look, this Canucks team, JD, I think you're saying before you hopped on, you can see them being a top 10 team. You can see them being a bottom 10 team. There's a huge variance here based on Pettersson and Demko specifically. But you look at this defense, and on paper, could be top 5 in the NHL, right? A great top 3 of Marcus Pettersson, Philip Hronek, Quinn Hughes, Kevin Lankinen, and Thatcher Demko have the potential to be one of the best goaltending duos in the NHL. And if you couple that with the Canucks offense, even if the Canucks offense is just league average, this is probably a playoff team.
Yeah, and nothing fixes locker room cultures like trading for Evander Kane. Kyle, so this feels like the year where the Ducks are supposed to take a step, right? You've been slowly building since 2018. You have all these great prospects who are starting to kind of round into form. And then you go out and you hire Joe Quenneville, who's won a Stanley Cup before. Can the Ducks, is this optimism for Anaheim this year?
There is a lot of optimism. Unlike the Canucks, who give their players to the Rangers, we take the Rangers and bring them over to Anaheim. We are the New York Rangers Light or the New York Rangers West, whichever way you want to look at it. But this year, there's a lot of optimism, I think, with the new coaching staff and the additions to this roster, and just seeing what's been happening with training camp so far. I think there's a lot that's going to come out of the Anaheim Ducks. I think they're going to put the league on notice, and there's going to be a little bit of surprise coming out of the wonderful Orange County out here and making a difference. I look at where these Ducks are, and compared to the Cronin structure that has been the last couple of years, and now looking at Joel Quenneville and the team and just their energy, their effort, it seems like there's just this level of respect that goes beyond, the regular levels of hockey. And now these guys are really putting their efforts and energy on the line. And it's going to be an exciting year out here for Anaheim.
I mean, that JT Miller jersey in a couple of years, that Ducks JT Miller jersey is going to be a hot commodity. The Miller McQuinn combo is going to be great.
I'm just
Miller
waiting for
McQueen combo.
Zibanejad to come out here because the
There we
Ducks love
go.
their Swedes. We're all about Sweden out here in Orange County. So Zibanejad, just come and join the boys. We're waiting for you.
Erica, the Kraken have been a team that's been kind of wandering the desert here. They made the playoffs their second year, and then it's been, they've been kind of struggling to get back to that. Is this the year that they break through?
Well, we sure hope so. The sentiments for optimism is that it was only worse one other season. So, let's do better, let's do better. And I think that the optimism in a more real answer is in Lane Lambert. I was one that wasn't necessarily on board with the coaching change because a lot of the issues with the Seattle Kraken, in my estimation, are not going to be fixed by just changing a head coach. We did also see that Ron Francis fired his third head coach, but got promoted. So congratulations to him. But that means that Jason Botterill is running more of the day-to-day. And I think that although I still have questions with regard to what the messaging is and if everyone from front office all the way to coaching staff is even on the same page with what the timeline is for the Seattle Kraken, in the last few days of training camp and even in the preseason, I think we're already seeing what Lane Lambert can do as far as bringing a lot more discipline to this team. He does not mince words. He seems very direct. He also has no issue stopping drills in practice. The practices have been he's running these guys or skating them, and there's a lot that he's setting a high bar, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. And when you have a team that's been flailing and has arrived earlier than expected in season 2, but then really has underperformed in a lot of ways, even though, this was still going to be a scrappy team trying to get out of the Pacific Division, but they've underperformed in the last 2 seasons. A coach, like Lane Lambert coming in, I'm seeing early returns on that. But we also thought that about Dan Bylsma at times, that he was going to really impact a much faster Seattle Kraken. And then my favorite element of the game, JD defense, went out the window. So, I think Lane will have that balance, and that's definitely a reason for optimism. Although, again, I might have to backtrack some of the things I said in the offseason about the coaching change. Early returns now are that this was the right move.
And I think for San Jose, right, we know what the Sharks team is. They put together the best prospect pool in the NHL. You have Macklin Celebrini. What was that?
I said that's the only thing they got going.
You have Macklin Celebrini, who's on his way to being the face of the NHL and an absolute superstar. Will Smith, and then they added Michael Misa, who's one of the cleanest prospects in the league. This team is been one of the worst teams in the NHL the last few seasons, and you're starting to see the corner, kind of turn the corner, the light at the end of the tunnel as all these pieces are starting to come together. And while, I think this team is still going to struggle to win a lot of games just because of how young the players are, and the defense is definitely patched together by veterans. You get to watch Macklin Celebrini every night do cool Macklin Celebrini things, and that right there is your reason for optimism, right? You see so many teams go through these rebuilds and unable to land that superstar player, and it feels like the Sharks have that superstar player, that franchise cornerstone that you can build everything else around, right? And if he turns out anywhere near the same breadth as Sidney Crosby, I feel like the Sharks are going to be in really good hands for the next 15 to 20 years with Celebrini, kind of driving this rebuild and driving where this is going. So while things are optimistic for all these teams, there are expectations that are put on by outside people like FanDuel, and this is what FanDuel thinks of all of our teams. So FanDuel has the over/under for the Canucks set at 89.5 points this year, the Ducks at 83.5, the Kraken at 78.5, and the Sharks at 72.5. Trevor, we'll start with you with your Canucks. Do you feel, what are you taking, over, under?
Yeah, I'm absolutely smashing the over on this. Not to sound like a homer over here, but like I said earlier on, and this team had 90 points last season in a year where everything went wrong. I mean, of course, it's Vancouver. Everything could go wrong again, but I would be betting that things are going to be better than last season. Like I said, I do believe this is a wild card team. You know, we love that mushy middle hockey in Vancouver. But the mushy middle probably means they're in that 90-ish point range, maybe even 95, maybe even 96 points. So I'd be hit the over for the Vancouver Canucks.
Kyle, what do you got for your Ducks?
Definitely taking the over. I think I saw the odds for over was like minus 130 or something like that. So definitely looking like the Ducks are gonna to break that. And I have confidence in this coaching staff and all these players that there's going to be a new look team out here, and we're definitely going to break that.
Erica, are you taking the over as well? Optimism City?
I guess I am, yeah. Not to sound like everybody else, but that's one second win on a back-to-back difference than last season, which we were 0-12 on back-to-back. So if we just get one back, yeah, it was nasty. It was nasty business, and that's not even the full streak if we go back to the season prior. So yeah, I mean, we had a back-to-back. We won the second game in preseason, so we're right in line to get that extra 2.5 points. I think that this team, again, early returns, the structure should be there in a way that it just wasn't last year. So I'm taking the over.
I'm taking the under on the Sharks. So the Sharks only had 52 points last year. The season before that, they had 47. They have yet to crack 100 points in the past 2 seasons combined. So that would be a 20-point jump from 52 to 72, and I guess a 21-point jump. As much as I think the Sharks team improves, that's a lot of points to jump in this season. I can see this team flirting with 70. Like I can see them flirting with 70. I think they're going to turn a lot of these close losses into wins, but it's still a very young team. They're going to make young team mistakes, and I will take the under. I'm being realistic here. I don't think the Sharks crack that 72.5 points. So we're going to talk about some of the big additions as well as breakout candidates. Will Smith here in just a minute. So you guys hang on for 1 second. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your finances without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's like your own personal Puckpedia, people. And the great thing about it, too, is if maybe you and your partner have separate accounts, but are working towards a goal together, whether it's buying a house, buying a car, or just planning your next adventure, they make it super easy to do that. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right. So before we continue, do of course want to thank you guys for making this your first listen. If you haven't, go check out any of our shows: Locked on Kraken, Locked on Ducks, Locked on Canucks, or Locked on Sharks, wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well. Erica, who was the biggest addition for your Seattle Kraken this offseason, and why was it Mason Marchment, who I really wanted the Sharks to trade for? No, but who do you think it was for you?
Yeah, everyone's saying Mason, and I'm an eye test gal, so I'm going to reserve the right to hold off on that. But I think the reason that Mason Marchment is everyone's pick is because another thing that we heard from the Seattle Kraken is that they want to play net front. We need a little more moxie, a little more sandpaper, and Mason definitely has that. Unfortunately, as I speak, he's one of our guys that's already day to day. So there you go. There goes my over. But I think that when you have a player like Mason Marchment, and then you have some of the young guys that we have in the pipeline, I'm expecting that, again, talking about Lane Lambert, that he's going to be able to really set an important tone. I think John Hayden is another guy that kind of comes from that cloth, so to speak, cut from the same cloth there. But yeah, I think Mason, if he can really help in that net front area, it's a huge emphasis that the organization has placed. And again, why they get Mason Marchment. I'm hoping he gets back healthier on that day-to-day. McCann is out, Chandler Stevenson, Capo Caco, who I'm sure I'll talk about on this. So yeah, we need a healthy piece of sandpaper in front of the net for us this season.
All right, Kyle, plenty of additions for the Ducks as they, trying to add some pieces. They had a lot of cap space this offseason. Who do you think is the most important addition to your Ducks?
There's a lot of ways I could go with this, from the new coaching staff to Chris Kreider to Mikael Granlund. There's a lot of good additions, but honestly, the person that I think that is a big and very important addition is Peter Mrazek. And he comes over with that trade with Detroit, with John Gibson heading over there to the Red Wings, which I can cry about later. But bringing Peter Mrazek over, I think, is a huge piece for Lukáš Dostal. Argue what you want with the preseason, with being too many games or too less games or whatever it is that you feel about the preseason. Dostal gets hit in the head last night, and there was a scheduled change, so he does leave the game to have Kale Klang come in, which it was scheduled, but it didn't look good with after he got hit in the head. And we've seen a couple of times the last couple of years of Dostal getting kind of run into in his net, and now you bring in someone like Peter Mrazek who can really back him up and kind of just let Dostal play his game and feel comfortable that you have someone reliable like him there. And then Billy Husso kind of came into the team at the end of last year, so he's not really a new addition, but just having that backup for him where you got two reliable guys that can really just fill that net for him and not make him feel like he has to be the guy every night is huge for this team. And everything's going to build from the goaltenders through the defense into the offense. And so I feel like Peter Mrazek is the guy that's really going to balance out Dostal and bring new energy to this Ducks team.
Trevor, biggest addition the Canucks made this offseason.
Man, oh man, I thought I was going to have to copy Kyle there with the head coach. I thought it was going to be Joel Quenneville. He threw the Peter Mrazek curveball there. But,
hey.
With the Vancouver Canucks, unlike the Anaheim Ducks, there were not a lot of new additions, right? It was Evander Kane, and no, I'm not picking Evander Kane here. I could go with Brady.
Why not?
You listen to Locked On Canucks for the takes on that. I could pick Braden Coots, who honestly has been one of the standouts at Canucks training camp. And even though he was a 15th overall pick, there's some rumblings that he could make the team to at least get an addition. But I got to go with Adam Foote, right? I think so much matters for the Vancouver Canucks. The entire NHL knows it. If the Vancouver Canucks aren't good, they are probably going to lose Quinn Hughes and slip into a San Jose Sharks rebuild, if we can even rebuild properly, which we've never done in our 55-year history. So I'm going with Adam Foote. Adam Foote got the Quinn Hughes cosign. Quinn Hughes, went on the record saying that Adam Foote is the best coach he's ever had back when he was an assistant. And here he is in Vancouver, where now winning really matters, to try to keep Quinn Hughes here, to try to keep the band together. And everyone kind of thought he was going to copy Rick Tocchet's style and it was going to be the same old Canucks. But early signs in training camp is that he's really tweaking the structure, trying to make the defense more aggressive and really trying to put his stamp on this team. So if he puts a stamp on this team and everything goes well, the Canucks can probably keep Quinn Hughes and maybe be competitive, dare I say, get back into that Stanley Cup contention conversation at some point. And if they aren't, well, the whole thing is going to blow up anyways. So a lot rides on whether or not Adam Foote can get the most out of the team this season.
Yeah, I mean, for the Sharks here, there was a lot of additions. Again, as they're trying to kind of patchwork their defense, but I wanted to talk about Dmitry Orlov, who the Sharks have had a bad defense will is nice to say for the past couple of seasons. And I think Orlov is a guy who he's never been the guy, right? He's always had a John Carlson or McAvoy, or like you look at like Jacob Slave, and so he's going to have to be the guy this year for the Sharks when it comes defensively. But I think he's still got enough left in the tank where I think he can help kind of solidify this defense, especially with some of the other pieces coming in, like a John Klingberg, who's we'll see if he can stay healthy. But I think he can kind of hold down the fort while some of the Sharks' young players like Sam Dickinson start to kind of ramp up and get ready to take a bigger role with the team. And if Orlov's good, I think that's going to make a guy like Yaroslav Askarov's life a lot easier, and is just going to kind of make the offense much smoother. So I think a lot rides on Orlov and kind of how well he can manage being the guy on the blue line for the Sharks this season. So I do think he's the most important piece for who was brought in this year. So, of course, going into every season, we have those dreams of guys who are just starting to explode and be just difference makers and take our teams from 52 points to 72 points, or maybe push us in the playoffs or whatever it is. So, Kyle, the Ducks have a lot of potential breakout players, as you have all these young guys getting ready to kind of make that big step. Who's the breakout player for the Ducks this year?
Well, I feel like we got a taste of Jackson Lacombe last year with his kind of explosion, and I expect that to continue. And then Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, they both came together last year at the end of the year. But my breakout guy this year that I think is going to thrive under the Coach Quenneville experience is Troy Terry. He's the guy that I think is going to thrive with this kind of quick pace, physical, just simplistic, systematic approach to hockey. You saw it against Utah the other night. Last night against LA, not looking as standout-ish with Carlson. I feel like there's some chemistry missing, but it seems like Quenneville's really trying to push that as they practiced today this morning. But Troy Terry is that guy. He plays such a responsible version of hockey. He's always doing the little things right. And he might not be the guy that shows up on the score sheet every single night, but he's doing all of the little things in the 200-foot game of hockey correct. And I think that's going to exponentially show up to this year with Joel Quenneville. And you're going to see probably a career year from Troy Terry this year. He's my guy. Expect great things from him.
Erica, is this the year? I'm going to say Capo Caco. Is this the year Capo Caco finally breaks out?
I would love to see it. And I think, in a short time here, we are also becoming perhaps the Rangers West, which suits me just fine as a New Yorker. But
we'll split them.
Capo Caco, I think, actually will benefit who is probably my top pick for breakout. Okay. And that is Yanni Newman. Now, a few things have to happen, including him actually making the NHL roster, but he has dropped weight. He has already in the preseason 3 goals in 2 games. And I think that he is just laser focused. And I think that him coming in, having such what seems to be a productive offseason, and Lane Lambert being the coach, I think he's feeding directly into what Lambert wants to do while also upping what he can do physically. And what we're seeing is Matty Beniers is centering that line with Newman and Kako. And I really like that combination overall. I got to put this one out there for the fans, though, because I know a lot of people want this to be a Shane Wright breakout year. And the truth is, that not only do I think there will be multiple players on the Kraken that will have a breakout year, but we kind of need it. All right. I've been likening these this preseason to the MTV old vets versus new threats, and we need some of these young guys to come in and really put a mark on the preseason. And Newman, for me and for my money, is top of the list. There's some other guys, Oscar Fisker Molgaard. I love what he's been able to do, Edward Chalet, but those players, I just don't see them making the roster for the beginning of the regular season. Now, once we get to Olympics and things of that nature, I think they have a great chance of maybe having an appearance, injuries, things of that nature. But for my money, it's Newman for sure. And yeah, Shane Wright will be up there as well.
Trevor, do the Canucks have anybody left to break out?
Well, I'm sticking with the trend here. We keep talking about former Rangers, and I'm going to say my former Ranger is going to be better than your former Ranger and your former Ranger. All right. And I'm going with Philip Hedl. Now, Philip Hedl got me excited at training camp where he referenced the JT Miller trade himself, right? Again, a guy in his mid-20s who's, been a middle six player coming to Vancouver with the potential to break out, right? And JT Miller did it. I'm not going to come on here and say that Philip Hedl's the next JT Miller, but he is a guy that has never played in a top six role consistently. And in the 15 games he was in Vancouver last season, the points weren't there, but he was the best player on the ice on most nights. He even talked at training camp too about how, he felt really good early on with the Canucks, and some of the system stuff started to confuse him and get to his head. And then he ended up suffering another concussion. And that's really going to be the key with Philip Hedl. Can he stay healthy? He's played a career high of 75 games. And even sometimes you watch him in preseason, like he can skate for days. He's great at handling the puck, but I do cringe sometimes when he skates into the middle of the ice. Like he still is that guy. But if he can stay healthy, I really do believe this guy is going to smash his career high of 45 points. I think there's a lot of skill there. He looked like one of the best guys at training camp. He's going to be a second line center. He's going to play more than ever. And again, if he can stay healthy, I think he's absolutely going to have a breakout season.
If we're sticking on former Rangers, Barclay Goodrow, no, no, it's a pretty easy one for me. I think it's Will Smith for the San Jose Sharks, right? And you saw the first half of the season, they kind of kept the training wheels on him, and then all of a sudden things clicked for him. The second half of the year, he had 30 points in 34 games to end the season. Only Macklin Celebrini had more points for the Sharks. He had 31 points in those same 34 games. Smith is going to be playing with Macklin Celebrini this year. There was thoughts that he might start the season as to try to win the second line center. It looks like it's going to be Michael Misa. So Will Smith is going to play with Macklin Celebrini, and those two are going to light the world on fire, as we saw last year, as those two played the second half of the season together. I think we were potentially looking at a 70-80 type of point season from Will Smith, and especially if Celebrini does what we think Celebrini's going to do, I think Will Smith's going to be right there with him. So that is my pick for the Sharks. I think Will Smith's going to be one of those guys that we talk about on a national scale here soon. So we're going to continue. We're going to kind of start looking ahead here and talk about which teams can which of us can climb out of the mud and seek some glory in the playoffs. We'll get to that here in just 1 second. All right, before we finish up, of course want to thank you guys for making this your first listen. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Steal and Flip provide daily fantasy tips to give you over the edge with your league mates while making you a smarter hockey fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the hope is one of us is not here next year. That's the hope, right? And spoiler, I'm going to be here next year because I'm trying to be realistic about this. And so we're going to kind of talk about who we think is going to not get out of here. So I'm going to start. I honestly, I think it's the Canucks. Like this Canucks team, if Quinn Hughes continues to be Quinn Hughes, and the difference of Quinn Hughes on the ice compared to when Quinn Hughes wasn't, is like watching like the 23-24 Sharks versus watching like an actual playoff team. Like the numbers say that Quinn Hughes was that important. He sounds like he's healthy. If Elias Pettersson can return to form and be somewhat of what he was, I think it's the Canucks. What do you guys say?
Well, when the Canucks fail to show up during this regular season and then Quinn Hughes goes over to New Jersey to join his brothers, the Ducks are going to sneak up and they're going to be taking over the playoffs this year. But in all joking aside, I think the Ducks have a good opportunity to be in that wild card spot. They're going to be battling the entire season. I think they're going to kind of be a surprise team this year with just the new coaching staff and the new energy around this team and just seeing how things have been around Great Park Ice and the Honda Center. I feel a different vibe than I have in multiple years out here in Orange County. And I'm expecting the Ducks to kind of be right there on that cusp.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I'm going to say, of course, it's the Seattle Kraken, right? I think that I have liked what Lane has done. Early returns with the discipline, getting this team focused. That's been a huge thing that's been missing. Great guys, lunch pail guys, and sometimes, you can't eat a sandwich every day, sometimes you need a little bit more sustenance. So I think Lane is bringing that. I do, though. Honestly, I like the two teams that have been brought up. So basically anyone but San Jose I'm cool with. But I think, Kyle, I might be leaning towards your squad. I've said this when I joined the network. It just seemed logically, right? Unless your team tank, forever, that some of the teams, as we were coming into the Pacific Division, they were getting young talent with those high draft picks. And eventually, right, that's going to pay off. And I think we saw that just as we were starting to come into the division with LA. We see what they've been able to do. Vegas has stayed there. And for me and my money, I think Anaheim is the next team to do that and be what the Kraken continue to say we want to be, which is a perennial playoff team. I think I don't know what our timeline is. The 5-year plan, which would be this season, I think is out the window. So I think we're now at another maybe 3 to 5 year plan. But Kyle, I like what your squad's got going on.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I'm looking at all our teams right now, I think sorry, JD. I think you're definitely in the bottom. At least you know it. Maybe I'm still in denial, right? Based on these conversations that have been going on. But for me, it's San Jose and Seattle that I think are still here for sure. I think, Seattle's ceiling is probably like this 80-ish point team, right? I mean, there were nights the last season, right? I think we played the Kraken in January. We got our butts kicked. We were missing Hughes and Pettersson. And I'm like, man, without Hughes and Pettersson, we are the Seattle Kraken because Kraken have some good defense. They got some players, but they got no stars, right? So the Canucks stars can be their stars. I feel good about us being out, but I really do think it's between the Ducks and the Canucks, right? And I look at this Ducks team on paper, and I don't feel like they're that much better. I think these guys, young guys, could take a step. Nothing about Chris Kreider or Mikhail Granlund or Jacob Trouba, being there. None of that excites me. But can Joel Quenneville coach that team up and get them into the playoffs? He's missed the playoffs, 3 times in 20 plus years of being a head coach. So the odds are on your side. Again, on paper, I don't love the Ducks making it to the playoffs, but again, Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlson could absolutely take the next step. The defense is still a mess, but if one of those guys takes a step too, plus the Joel Quenneville factor, then it could be a tight race between the Ducks and the Canucks for one of those teams to make it in.
All right. And if things don't go well this season, what is at stake? So, Erica, we'll start with you. I know, again, new coach, hopefully there's some, little bit of the honeymoon period, but what do you think is at stake for the Kraken if things don't turn out well this year?
Yeah, this is such a dicey question. I've been trying to get a sense of if Lane Lambert has a super short leash here, just given all of the coaching changes and the Dan Bylsma change. I really just think he, I don't know, he ate someone's lunch or something. I don't know what happened. He took it out the fridge and they were like, you gotta go. But I think that what's at stake here is that you had a lot of excitement for an organization and for a city where now things are starting to turn to not if, but when the Supersonics return, and you're going to have that air sucked right out. And if you can't win, you're a mediocre at best team, which is honestly where the Kraken have been. And the conversations that I'm hearing around the organization, we're not team tank, or at least that's what we're hearing, but we're not necessarily going to make that huge jump. I mean, we all agreed on that, right? for the most part. So I think what's at stake here is that you have an organization that was built really well from all of the optics perspectives, but it never really panned out on the ice sheet. And I would say that Ronnie Francis is in trouble, but it seemed like he got bubble wrapped when he got promoted to president. So I guess Lane and Jason are going to have to take that if it doesn't work out.
Tough. Yeah, tough. Trevor, I mean, we kind of touched on it before, but this feels like a massive season for the Canucks where you could either be, again, entering the playoff conversation and everything's cool, or you could be going through a very painful rebuild here really soon. Is it really the stakes that high?
Yeah, I think the stakes are that high. I think there's already been some reporting going on, within the past couple of weeks that Canucks management, if things don't go well, they could be under the gun, right? Time has flown by, as Patrick Allvin said recently. It is year 4 on the job for him. Jim Benning got fired in December of 2021, so it's been a while. These guys have had their time to put a stamp on the team. Everything was trending in the right direction until last season, and they got to take some blame too for how the whole Miller-Pettersson situation was handled. So if things look more or less like that last year, I think Canucks management's under the gun. And of course, like we've all talked about, it's Quinn Hughes is likely leaving, and I might be here for a long time, guys.
It's okay. We have jackets. Kyle, we again, like, vibes are good, things are going well, so kind of feels like if maybe they don't kind of meet expectations, like you still feel like you're heading in the right direction. Is like, doesn't feel like it's as dire for the Ducks this year if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there needs to be an improvement in the points at least, and they need to be a competitive team this year. And even if they don't make the playoffs, as long as they're kind of right there in the cusp, if they're bottom, like hanging out with the Sharks, like no pun intended, being bottom feeders, if that's the case, then there might be an issue with Pat Verbeek. I think Pat Verbeek's been kind of pushing the overall fan base in a negative direction, and especially looking at how he's handled players like Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale, now Mason McTavish. We're 7 days into this training camp and still there's zero movement. Elliot Friedman reported nothing's been happening. It's just looking like Verbeek's kind of got this ego, and that's going to be an issue. And if we don't see success, and it comes back to, Mason McTavish having a poor year, because by the time he finally gets signed, or if he moves out, whatever happens with McTavish, I think will be the kind of descriptor of this season, whether it's good or bad. And if it goes bad, I think Verbeek's going to be on that chopping block.
A life with no expectations. Here's what I would say. I think fans, though, want to see improvement, right? And is something I've been kind of harping on with my show is you can't three-peat. Like the Panthers are going for a three-peat. We're trying to avoid the three-peat of being the worst team in the NHL, because it's not a great look if your team is the worst team in the NHL for 3 straight seasons. And I think if the Sharks are the worst team in the NHL, it brings up bigger questions of like, well, is Askarov this guy that we expect him to be? And is Celebrini, can be this guy? And what about Eklund and Smith, et cetera, et cetera? I think it poses more questions. And while, again, I don't expect this team to be up in the playoffs and stuff, but can this team be just more competitive night in and night out? And we saw that last year under Ryan Warsofsky, where they were a very competitive team on most nights. And yes, you got your 7-1 games mixed in there as well. And I think there's gonna be less of those. And I think there's gonna be less third period where they lose leads in the third period. But everybody knows what the Sharks team is, right? And Mike Grier has been very slow and very methodical about this, and he's going to continue to do that because he wants to. He doesn't want to be the Kraken, where you go to the playoffs once and then you're an 80-point team for the rest. Like, we want to be that next, right? We want to be the next Avs. We want to be the next Lightning.
Excuse me. We aspire to be an 80-point team. Thank you very much.
Yes. Right. We want to be the next Avs. We want to be the next Lightning. We want to be that next team where every year, as long as Celebrini and Smith are in wearing teal and healthy, this is a team that could win the Stanley Cup. So that's where this is hopefully going. This was a blast, guys. I can't wait till next year when we get to do this again. Me, Kyle, Erica, and then probably Jess from
Wow.
the Flames. So, but sorry, Jess.
I'm looking forward to Vegas joining this chat.
That would be
Yeah.
that would be hilarious. Who do you think? Really quick before we end this, who do you think who's with us down here next year? Who's with me, hanging out with me next year?
LA.
LA.
LA. I could see LA. I think it's between LA and Calgary, probably.
How about this? Let's say Ducks and Canucks are up to the top, and LA and Calgary.
Hey.
So that's realistic.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, Flames.
Let's go.
There we go. At least it'll be me and Erica next year. So as always, we'll start. Of course, you can find any of our shows wherever you're listening to this podcast and watch on YouTube as well. Locked on Canucks, Locked on Ducks, Locked on Kraken, and Locked on Sharks. Until next year. Bye, friends.